The sun was just beginning to set, casting an orange hue across the small town of Pine Ridge. The world was still, except for the distant hum of crickets in the evening air. Alex Carter, a quiet mechanic in his mid-30s, stood outside his garage wiping his hands with an old rag. His small-town life had always been simple: fixing cars, listening to the town's gossip, and avoiding attention. He never expected that tonight everything would change. It started like any other evening, but then the sky above Pine Ridge began to shimmer. A bright, glowing light appeared in the sky, growing larger and larger with each passing second. Alex's eyes widened as he saw it. A ship, not a plane, not a meteor. A ship! A massive, sleek, and shining vessel descended slowly, making no sound as it hovered just above the ground. The entire town fell silent as people rushed out of their homes to witness the extraordinary sight. The ship landed gently in the center of the field, just outside Pine Ridge. The townspeople stared in awe, not sure if they should be frightened or amazed. A few whispers spread through the crowd, but no one moved. What was happening? Was this the beginning of an invasion, or was this a peaceful visit from beings far beyond anything they could imagine? Alex, who had always been a skeptic, felt a knot form in his stomach. He had spent years fixing things, studying machines and engines. But this was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The ship was alien. Its design was unlike any human technology. Smooth, metallic surfaces gleamed in the evening light, reflecting the curiosity and fear in the eyes of the onlookers. Minutes passed before a hatch opened in the side of the ship. A ramp extended to the ground, and from the shadows inside, figures began to step out. They were tall, easily a head taller than most humans, dressed in shimmering clothing that seemed to shift in color. Their skin was smooth, slightly metallic, and their eyes glowed faintly, as though they had seen things no human had ever imagined. The crowd gasped. The visitors were unlike anything they had ever encountered. The Varelians, as the visitors would later be called, had arrived. They were here to make contact with Earth, though no one knew exactly why or what their intentions were. Some people feared the worst, but the Varelians made no move to harm anyone. Instead, they stood silently, observing the humans in front of them. Their leader, a tall figure with silver-blue skin and eyes that shimmered with intelligence, stepped forward and raised a hand. The crowd was silent as they waited to hear what the alien leader would say. "I am Orak, leader of the Varelians," the figure spoke, though no words passed from their lips. The sound seemed to come directly into the minds of those standing before him. "We come in peace, to learn from your world and offer what we can in return." The air seemed to hum with the weight of the moment. The tension between fear and curiosity was thick. Orak's voice had a calmness to it that made it clear they meant no harm. The Varelians, it seemed, had come to share knowledge and technology, to help Earth advance in ways they never thought possible. But as the words echoed in Alex's mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that something more was at play. Among the Varelians, there was one who stood apart from the others. A young girl, no older than 20 in human years, stood slightly behind the leader. Her skin was a soft shade of violet, and her hair shimmered like threads of starlight. Her eyes were large, not in a way that made her appear alien, but in a way that made her seem wise beyond her years. There was something deeply captivating about her, something Alex couldn't quite understand. Her gaze met his, and for a moment, everything else faded away. It was as if the entire world had vanished, leaving just the two of them standing in a silent understanding. He wasn't sure why, but Alex felt an inexplicable pull toward her. A connection he couldn't explain, something deep inside of him that tugged at his very soul. The crowd was still, waiting for some sort of response. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, the girl took a step forward. The air seemed to shift, and she walked toward Alex. Her movements were graceful, almost otherworldly, and the crowd parted as she moved. She stood directly in front of him, looking up into his eyes. There was no fear in her expression, no hesitation, just a calm certainty. Then, to Alex's surprise, she raised her hand and pointed directly at him. The air seemed to thicken, and a quiet murmur ran through the crowd. Why had she chosen him? Why had she singled him out from the hundreds of people gathered around her? Zira, the young alien girl, smiled softly. The sound that followed wasn't a voice, but a sensation, like a thought shared between two minds. "You are the one I have chosen." The words echoed in Alex's mind, and a wave of shock hit him. The world around him seemed to slow. He looked down at the girl, unsure how to respond. Was this some sort of trick? A test? A pose? The questions raced through his mind, but before he could speak, Orcs, the leader of the Varelians, stepped forward. His voice, calm yet filled with an authority that sent a shiver down Alex's spine, filled the air. "This choice is not one to be made lightly," Orcs said, his tone stern but not unfriendly. "Zira, why have you chosen this human?" The crowd waited, and Alex felt every eye on him, as though the very world was holding its breath. Zira did not look away from him, her gaze unwavering. She was not afraid, but her mother, the matriarch of the Varelian race, stood beside Orcs, her expression unreadable. The tension in the air grew thicker. Zira took a deep breath, and again Alex felt the sensation of her words in his mind. "I see something in him." Something that cannot be ignored. He is strong in a way that no one else here is. The matriarch's face tightened. Her eyes flickered to Zira, then to Alex, before she turned away, seemingly lost in thought. Alex stood there, uncertain of what to do. The whole situation felt surreal. This alien girl, someone from another world, had chosen him. But why? What did she see in him that no one else did? He was just an ordinary man, a mechanic with a quiet life and few ambitions. He had nothing special about him. And yet, as Zira continued to look at him with that calm, knowing gaze, Alex felt a strange sense of reassurance, as though everything that had led him to this moment had been building up to this one choice. But the question lingered. Why him? The Varelian council began to murmur among themselves. Orcs stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "This is unexpected," he said. "We must understand the implications of this decision." Zira's mother, the matriarch, finally spoke, her voice low but filled with an edge of warning. "This is not a choice to be taken lightly, Zira," she said. "You cannot just select a human based on feelings alone."
"There is much more at stake here." Zira's smile faltered for a moment, but she stood her ground.
"I know what I feel, Mother," she replied, her voice carrying a quiet strength. "And I know this is right." The matriarch turned her gaze back to Alex. Her eyes seemed to pierce through him, searching for something. He didn't know what she was looking for, but it made him uncomfortable. He couldn't tell whether she saw him as an ally, a threat, or something else entirely. Then, in an unexpected moment of clarity, the matriarch finally nodded. "We will allow this," she said softly. "But remember, Zira, your choice has consequences beyond what you can understand." As she spoke those words, Alex's heart skipped a beat. He had no idea what consequences lay ahead, but the weight of the matriarch's warning settled heavily on his chest. He had no way of knowing that this moment, this choice, would change everything, not just for him, but for the entire world. The crowd slowly began to disperse, but Alex stayed rooted in place. Zira did not leave his side. Her presence was calming, almost as if she had always been there, as if their connection had existed long before this moment. He looked down at her, still confused and overwhelmed. "Why me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Zira's gaze softened. "Because you are the one who will understand, Alex. You are the one who will help us." Her voice, though soft, carried a weight of truth that Alex could not deny. And so, as the stars began to twinkle in the sky above them, Alex Carter's life, as he knew it, was over. The path ahead, uncertain and fraught with unknown dangers, was now his to walk, and the alien girl who had chosen him would be the one to guide him through it all. The days following Zira's unexpected choice were nothing like Alex had ever experienced. The quiet, mundane life he had led in Pine Ridge seemed a distant memory. Since that evening, the small town had become the center of global attention. Reporters, scientists, government officials, and military personnel from around the world had descended upon the town, each one eager to learn what this mysterious connection between a human and an alien girl meant. Alex had been taken to a secret facility where the Varelians had set up their base. The facility was located in a remote area, miles away from the prying eyes of the public. Zira had not left his side since that day. The connection between them was undeniable. And though Alex couldn't fully explain it, he felt an inexplicable pull toward her. She was not just an alien. She was someone who seemed to understand him in a way no one else could. The facility itself was a marvel of alien technology. It was far beyond anything Alex had ever seen. Sleek, metallic walls shimmered with a strange, iridescent glow. The air was different, fresh and alive with an energy that Alex couldn't quite place. Everything was so clean, so precise. The Varelians moved through the halls with a quiet grace, as though their very presence was a dance of order and elegance.
But even in the midst of all this advanced technology and knowledge, Alex couldn't help but feel out of place.
He was a mechanic, an ordinary man who had never once thought about the possibility of meeting an alien, let alone becoming entangled in their affairs. He was used to working with metal and engines, not with beings who could see into the very essence of a person's soul. Zira was always there, standing by him, her violet skin glowing softly in the ambient light. There was something comforting about her presence. Her large eyes, filled with wisdom and curiosity, never left him. Despite being from a species that was so different from his own, she seemed to understand him better than anyone. But there were times, when the other Varelians would look at him with suspicion or curiosity, that Alex felt like he didn't belong. One day, after another round of tests and interviews with the human and alien scientists, Zira led him to a quiet room within the facility. The room was simple, nothing like the rest of the high-tech spaces in the building. It had soft, neutral-colored walls and a large window that overlooked a vast landscape of green hills. The sky was clear, and Alex could see the stars just beginning to peek out as the sun began to set. It was beautiful, almost calming. Zira sat down next to him, her presence like a gentle breeze in the room. She was silent for a moment, looking out the window, before turning to him with that same intense gaze. "Alex," she said, her voice like a soft whisper in his mind, "you're confused."
"I can sense it." Alex nodded. "Why?"
He had been feeling lost ever since the moment she had chosen him. There was a constant swirl of questions in his mind. Why him? What did this all mean? What was he supposed to do now? "I don't understand," Alex said aloud, his voice thick with uncertainty. "I'm just a mechanic. I'm not important."
I don't have any special abilities. I'm not even the kind of person people would choose for something like this.
Zira's expression softened, and she reached out, her cool hand touching his. "You are more important than you realize," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You have a strength that you don't see. It's not in your skills or your knowledge. It's in your heart. It's in your ability to understand others, even when they are different from you." Alex felt a warmth spread through him at her words. He had never thought of himself as strong. He was just an ordinary man who liked to keep to himself, fix things, and live a quiet life. But there was something about the way Zira spoke, something about the way she saw him, that made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he was capable of more than he had ever known. Zira continued, "You see, my people, we struggle with emotions. We are a species that has been so focused on logic, on progress, that we have lost touch with our feelings. Our kind doesn't experience emotions the way you do, Alex. We see them as weaknesses, something that cloud judgment and decision-making.
That's why we have struggled for so long.
Alex looked at her, his brow furrowed in confusion. But if emotions are important, why don't you experience them like we do? Zira sighed, her gaze distant. It's complicated. Our culture values logic and order above all else. We've learned to suppress our feelings, to control them so that they don't interfere with our work or decisions. But over time, that suppression has caused problems. We've lost the ability to truly connect with one another, to understand each other in a deep and meaningful way. That's why I chose you, Alex.
Alex's heart raced as he listened to her. You chose me because I'm human?
Because I have emotions? Zira nodded, her violet eyes never leaving his.
Yes.
Alex, you can show us how to feel again.
You can teach us the things we've forgotten. Emotions are not weaknesses.
They are what make us truly alive. I chose you because you can help my people rediscover what it means to care for one another, to love and understand. The weight of her words settled in Alex's chest. He had always thought of emotions as a source of pain, a complication, but now he was beginning to understand that emotions were what made people connect, what made them human. And maybe that was why Zira had chosen him. Maybe, in some strange way, he could help the Varelians heal. But the thought also terrified him. How could he, an ordinary mechanic, teach an entire species about emotions? Zira seemed to sense his hesitation. You may not understand it fully yet, but that's why we're here, Alex. We need you to help us. You're the one who can bridge the gap between us and the humans. You can show us what we've lost, and in turn, you can learn from us as well. Alex leaned back in his chair, still processing everything. It felt like too much to ask of someone like him. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't someone who could change the course of an entire civilization. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that maybe this wasn't about him. Maybe it was about something greater, something that could change not just the Varelians, but humanity as well. What do I need to do? He asked quietly, his voice uncertain but filled with a sense of purpose. Zira smiled. A soft, knowing smile. First, you need to trust yourself, Alex. Trust that you have what it takes.
You're already teaching me things I never knew. Your understanding of the world, the way you see people.
It's different from anything I've ever encountered. That's why I chose you.
That's why you're the one. The weight of the responsibility was starting to sink in, but there was something else too.
A spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the reason he had been chosen. To help not only the Varelians, but humanity itself. As the days passed, Alex continued his training with Zira and the other Varelians. They taught him their ways, their technology, and their culture. But as he learned from them, he also began to teach them in return. Slowly but surely, the connection between them deepened. It wasn't just a bond between two species. It was a connection that transcended the physical, a link forged through shared experiences and emotions. One evening, as Alex and Zira sat together overlooking the stars, Alex turned to her with a question that had been weighing on his mind.
Zira, he began, his voice quiet but filled with curiosity. Why me?
Why did you feel that I was the one who could help? Zira looked at him, her violet eyes filled with a soft glow. Because you're human, Alex.
You see the world in a way we can't. You understand emotions because you live them every day.
You have the strength to show us what it means to be truly alive. Alex's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and fear. He wasn't sure he was ready for all this, but one thing was clear. Zira had chosen him for a reason. And no matter how uncertain he felt, he was willing to try. For her, for the Varelians, and for himself. As the stars twinkled above, Alex knew that this was just the beginning of something much greater than he could have ever imagined.
A journey not just between species, but a journey into the very heart of what it meant to be human.